Nothing in the ocean is supposed to be unstoppable. Every apex predator has a limit, a rival, a weakness, a boundary it cannot cross. Sharks dominate reefs, sperm whales rule the abyss, and polar bears control the ice. But orcas don't stay in one domain. They hunt sharks. They take down whales larger than themselves. They operate in polar ice, open ocean, and tropical shallows. By basic ecological logic, this shouldn't work. A predator this adaptable should hit a ceiling. So what exactly is stopping them? Nothing. An orca is more than just a large dolphin. At first glance, you see a cuddly black and white shape similar to that of normal dolphins, but don't let that fool you. These are apex hunters. The perfect predators shaped by millions of years, engineered for control across every marine biome on Earth. From the frozen silence of Antarctica to the sunlit shallows of California, they hunt like a coordinated strike force. When they hit, sharks disappear. Even blue whales escape. They aren't nicknamed killer whales for nothing. The ability to kill anything from small fish to sharks to whales, and to do so without fear of being hunted in return. There is no other fish that can pull this off in the ocean. Well, except for orcas. Adult males stretch over 9 meters in length and weigh more than 10,000 kilograms. Their dorsal fins can rise over 2 meters high, slicing through thick polar fogs like blades. Adult female orcas generally measure between 5 and 7 meters in length and weigh approximately 5,400 kilograms, living for up to 80 years of age or more. What's even more impressive is their internal structure. Their musculature is dense and compact, optimized for explosive acceleration. Their caudal flukes pack powerful bursts that reach up to 55 kilometers per hour. This is fast enough to overtake almost every marine prey or predator. But something like anatomy alone doesn't explain the depth of their supremacy over every other sea dweller. Their skulls carry conical teeth up to 10 centimeters long, not meant for chewing, but for gripping and tearing to shreds. Their jaws exert enough crushing force to neatly dismember prey much larger than themselves. Not that alone, their blubber insulates them from Antarctic waters where temperatures drop below freezing, yet they are able to adapt equally in tropical seas. From the icy waters of the Antarctic to the fjords of Norway, orcas are not just specialized predators, they are universal ones. And anatomy alone doesn't explain their dominance, because their real advantage isn't physical, it's cognitive. And once you understand that, their position at the top starts to make a lot more sense. What keeps orcas steps ahead of other marine creatures is their cognition. They have a brain built for complexity. Their encephalization quotient, a measure of brain size relative to body mass, rivals that of great apes. Their cerebral cortex is unusual compared to other animals, being deeply folded, which increases surface area for complex processing. This simply means that regions associated with emotion, communication, and social intelligence are on a whole nother level. When it comes to hunting, orcas do not just hunt. They plan and coordinate, and they move in groups known as pods. Pods contain 4 to 50 individuals. This number changes based on the ecotype. For example, pods in the North Pacific can have 10 to 25 plus killer whales. In some cases, particularly in Alaskan or Antarctic waters, they can exceed 100 individuals, especially when foraging. It's terrifying enough to have one orca, but knowing they don't move alone but in packs like wolves, it changes how other animals behave in the area. You already know that orcas are highly intelligent, so imagine an army of those. Pods function with precision that resembles military strategy. They go to war, assign roles, anticipate reactions, and have countermeasures, which means they can adapt mid-hunt, regroup, and reroute. What's even more fascinating is that some orcapods don't just hunt randomly. They specialize in hunting different animals. One pod perfects seal hunting. Another becomes a professional shark killer. Others target whales or schools of fish. And the chilling part of it is that they pass those strategies culturally across generations. Hunting tactics are passed down like family traditions, more improved, refined, and protected. But that's not even the peak of it. Each pod has its own dialect, acoustic signatures that function like a surname and sound. An orca can tell another orca just by how he speaks, and those vocal traditions can last for decades. This makes them excellent hunters, even against one of the ocean's greatest forces, the great white shark. In recent years, something extraordinary happened off the coast of South Africa. Great white sharks, one of the most popular apex predators that once ruled those waters, began vanishing one by one from their aggregation sites. Marine biologists looked into the strange situation. The first ever recorded clash happened in 1997. It wasn't climate change, it definitely wasn't caused by overfishing, it was no more than two male orcas. Multiple carcasses began washing ashore, and the scary part, they were not mangled, not shredded, but opened with surgical precision. The liver was removed, and the rest of the body almost untouched. But that's not even the strangest part. Here's where these mammals become even more interesting. Marine biologists were so intrigued by such sightings that they took them into investigation. They discovered that the orcas didn't just attack the sharks, but had them flipped upside down, triggering tonic immobility. A paralysis response, more like hypnosis, before tearing open the body cavity to extract a single organ, the liver. A really big, lipid-rich fuel tank that can weigh over 100 kilograms in a large great white. What's even more disturbing is what happened within weeks of orca sightings. After their hunt for great whites, the apex predators fled the entire region for safety, permanently. A powerful force of nature is abandoning its own territory for a group of species tagged with the dolphin family. Of course, there are no cuties that play with beach balls and giggle. Orcas are known to instill fear in their victims. Predation is not only about physical capabilities, but it's also about psychological impact. Killer whales are like predictable predators with recognizable patterns. Acoustic monitoring has revealed that when orca calls enter a region, entire ecosystems respond. Seals haul out much earlier. Sharks alter migration patterns, finding a different route that avoids the enemy. Even large whales recalibrate their movement. Orcas don't just propagate fear through sound alone. They exploit it. There are cases where some orcapods use highly specialized techniques that seem engineered rather than instinctive. In the freezing waters of Antarctica, certain groups are known to cooperate to generate a wave-washing technique. They do this by swimming side by side and precisely timing every movement to create powerful waves that wash seals off ice and into the pod below. This behavior isn't just brilliant, it's a coordination technique passed down through generations. Young orcas learn this skill over the years by watching elders execute it again and again, until it's completely imprinted in their DNA. These black and white hunters of the deep do more than this. In the Pacific Northwest and North Atlantic, some pods use bubble curtains, a trapping mechanism using underwater choreography to herd fish into tight balls that makes it difficult for them to escape. After this, the orcas start slapping them with their tails to stun them. This particular technique is so refined that it competes with human fishing nets, having a huge success rate. And then there's something even more weird, a behavior that makes expert researchers stare in awe. It happened off the coast of Argentina's Peninsula Valdez, where orcas have mastered an act of intentional standing. They do this by watching the waves with full concentration and timing that they soon beach themselves, snatch seal or sea lion pups, and then dive back into deeper water using the next surge. This move requires exact knowledge of slope and shoreline, tide cycles, waves, and the ability to surf. For some decades, scientists assumed orcas only hunted in the sunlit upper part of the ocean, the epipelagic zone where light still penetrates. And this is where logic breaks again, because scientists assume orcas ruled the surface. They were wrong. Over the years, tagging and tracking data now shows orcas going far deeper, and in some cases, reaching beyond 1,000 meters, equivalent to over 3,200 feet, into cold and pitch-black waters where not a single ray of sunlight reaches. With pressure enough to crush most aquatic animals, these guys tank it like it's nothing. They don't just dive deeper than expected, they chill there like it's their own habitat. Unlike us, they are built and reinforced with extraordinary physiology, and able to adapt in places far beyond impressive. These yin and yang colored beasts have high concentrations of myoglobin, an oxygen-binding protein present in the muscle that acts like an internal oxygen tank. Heads up, humans aren't the only divers with oxygen tanks. When they dive, their heart rate drops dramatically, allowing them to conserve enough oxygen. A process known as bradycardia. During this process, blood flow focuses on vital organs like the heart, brain, and lungs, while less critical tissues and organs take a break. But that's not even the best part. Orcas can collapse their lungs under pressure to avoid the bends, a well-known deadly condition that human divers face when nitrogen bubbles form in the blood. Their body structure, both internally and externally, has evolved to avoid this entirely so they can plunge deeper in the ocean without suffering any serious damage. And there's an even more disturbing detail. The deeper an orca goes, the more it looks less like a dolphin. It takes a new form, like the true deep-sea master it is, mimicking creatures like the elusive beaked whales that do 4-hour dives into absolute darkness. So when you hear discussions about the ocean's frontier, you don't just think about surface animals. You think deeper, much deeper. You think of orcas, because when their hunts in the top waters are impressive, nothing prepares you for what orcas do in the dark. Among the many dramatic behaviors ever documented is orca taste on specific species of baleen whales, especially their calves. Yes, you heard that right. Here's how they do it. Researchers have constantly recorded orcas targeting migrating gray whale calves along the Pacific coast of North America. Pods intercept mother-calf pairs, separating them through coordinated harassment by continuously ramming, biting flippers, and forcing prolonged dives lasting hours. They do this non-stop until both mother and the calf are exhausted. These events have been documented live in detail by marine biologists studying eastern North Pacific gray whales. The shocking part is that the mother gray whale can weigh somewhere between 30 and 49 tons. Armed with one of the most powerful tails in the world, strong enough to injure predators underwater. Yet with all this power, she is helpless against multiple orcas. Since they attack and move like a tactical unit, some distract, some bite, and some block escape routes, it's not always about brute strength in the deep. It's a strategy. Now here's where things get unsettling. When the calf finally succumbs to the long pursuit, the pod mostly consumes only specific parts, especially energy-dense tissues like the lips, the tongue, and blubber, leaving much of the carcass behind. This picky feeding behavior has been recorded in multiple sightings of gray whale predation and other baleen whale attacks. Why only those parts? Well, that's because blubber and tongue tissue is pure fuel, containing maximum calories with minimum effort. And at this point, you might be thinking, is there anything they can't do? As oddly surprising as it might sound, orcas hunting down baleen whales helps influence ecology and sea life. How? The carcasses don't just go to waste. When the remains sink, they become what marine ecologists call a whale fall, a deep-sea event that can help sustain benthic communities for years. These organisms include sleeper sharks, crustaceans, hagfish, and even a known bone-eating worm species that lives in the remains after everyone's had a bite. One kill becomes an entire ecosystem. So you see, this isn't just senseless engineering, it's ecological engineering. Orcas aren't known to just take out targets from the food chain. They also redistribute sustenance from surface waters to the abyss. Humans tend to imagine apex predators as simple-minded killers at the top of the pyramid, but orcas are more than that. They help influence the migration patterns of gray whales. They even alter shark behavior. Studies on the North Pacific coast also suggested that over time, our black and white friends can help reshape the marine mammal population. Orcas don't just dominate the ocean, they change it. As much as you think these killer mammals are unstoppable, there are threats that even they can't withstand, and these threats don't come with teeth. It's a global threat that every living organism faces, a threat that keeps evolving and building. Humans. Somewhere in the Salish Sea, between Washington and British Columbia, there are southern resident killer whales that have declined critically low in numbers. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the population dropped to just 73 individuals in the whole region in recent years, making them one of the most endangered orca populations on Earth. What could have caused this, you might ask? Vessels like boats make it hard for orcas to see with sound. Since they're experts in echolocation, they click and listen for echoes to find food. When ships and engines are loud, it's like trying to find a pin blindfolded in a noisy room. If that's not enough of a problem, they also face starvation. In places like the Pacific Northwest, the Chinook salmon are orcas' main meal. When their favorite snack is in short supply because of overfishing, dams, or habitat loss, orcas in this area struggle to get enough to eat. This leads to the release of toxic chemicals in their bodies. Orcas are excellent at storing fat to survive hard times, like most mammals. But over time, harmful industrial toxins like PCBs also collect there. When food is scarce and they burn fat for energy, those industrial chemicals are released into their bloodstream, which can weaken their immune system and affect their ability to have healthy calves. In simpler terms, they can't hunt properly, they can't find enough food thanks to boat noises, and the food they do find may harm reproduction and immune function over time. Orcas are highly social. Their matrilinear structure, where offspring stay with their mothers for life to learn their ways, creates knowledge banks that span decades. Remember the class we discussed? Orcas have survived ice ages, crossed hemispheres, adapted to shifting prey and collapsing ecosystems. They don't depend on one habitat, one hunting style, or one food source. They learn, they teach, and they evolve culturally as well as biologically. Nothing in the ocean stops orcas. Well, here's another interesting fact about orcas. Some older females, particularly post-reproductive matriarchs, have been shown to assist the pod during food shortages by guiding groups to reliable feeding grounds, avoiding toxic wastes and vessel noises. In fact, it is known that pods led by elder females had higher survival rates in years of feeding scarcity compared to the males. But wait, there's more. The origin of killer whale evolution goes far deeper than biologists and researchers can find. The fossil record for orcas is little, but enough to know where they descended from, dating back to ancient relatives like Rhododelphis stomatiadisi from the Pliocene. Fossils show that early dolphin-like ancestors already possess features resembling today's orcas. These include larger skulls and robust teeth, suggesting a shift from simple fish eating to more complex predatory instincts and behavior over millions of years. Here's what's fascinating. While the fossils offer clues, modern genetics fill the picture. Killer whales were thought long ago to be a single monotypic species, but studies revealed that different ecotypes, like the resident bigs and offshore orcas, act differently in behavior. Their vocalizations, social structure, diet, and even genetics are so different that scientists argue they deserve to be given a separate species or subspecies status. And that's not even the strangest part. Orcas perform what you might call isolation by culture, not just by geography. This means that even populations living in the same ocean can follow separate evolutionary paths because they don't interbreed, ever. Orcas ignore boundaries. They hunt fish with precision echolocation, then fall silent to ambush marine mammals. They dismantle sharks with calculated strikes. They intentionally beach themselves to snatch prey. They dive into cold, pitch-black depths most mammals would never survive. Every fact about orcas reinforces the same conclusion. They are built for control across environments that were never meant to overlap. But dominance is always relative. Because the real question was never whether anything in the ocean could stop orcas. The real question is, what happens when the ocean itself changes? As temperatures rise, prey shifts, noise increases, and ecosystems destabilize, adaptability becomes the ultimate test. And for the first time in thousands of years, that test isn't coming from another predator. It's coming from the environment. So think about it. If no shark, no whale, no depth, and no cold has ever checked them, what does? Do orcas remain untouchable, or does every apex predator eventually meet a limit? I want to hear your take. And if you're drawn to the biological forces that sit at the edge of possibility, subscribe, because the next story might challenge something even more dominant than this.